Hello and welcome to this October edition of Westrail News. As you can see, it's back to the studio this month after our very successful on-location edition at the Avon Descent. Thank you to all who assisted and made that weekend possible. In this program we'll see a unique tourist attraction on rails in our southwest. We'll visit a country field day to see Westrail on display, and our cover story goes off the rails and onto the road as we look at our Road Services Division. But for our first story, we travel to Mundijong to see a rejuvenation process that is smoothing the way for our southwest traffic.
The 8th of the 8th, 88, was indeed a special day for a group of railway systems executives invited to Mundijong. That day saw the launch of Australia's first gauge convertible track grinding machine. Westrail has awarded Loram Australia, an American-based engineering company, a 3-month contract for its SX10 rail grinder, initially on the Kwinana-Mundijong-Picton line, the first narrow-gauge grinding contract in Australia. As a result of the constant forces of rail traffic, tracks develop unevenness and surface defects, particularly on curves, leading to vehicle hunting and irregular wear. A rail grinder removes defects by grinding the rail back to its original profile, effectively doubling the life of the track. It also reduces locomotive fuel consumption, track noise, and substantially increases wheel life. The SX10's onboard computer controls the angle and horsepower of the 16 grinder motors, as well as monitoring rail corrugations and automatically adjusting for defects. The SX10 also has a comprehensive spark guard system and is fitted with onboard water storage, spray bars and fibre hose to control any sleeper or trackside scrub fires. The Kwinana-Mundijong-Picton line is heavily used by freight and passenger traffic alike. The SX10 is helping to maximise its lifespan and ensure the line's continuing efficiency as part of Westrail's track maintenance program.
What a magnificent piece of machinery. And continuing on the theme of railway track, we present a story on something that covers the same distance, yet most of us give little thought to or even see. Here's Peter Holland.
The Westrail system encompasses 5,500 kilometres of track throughout the state of Western Australia. A vast network of rail linking a huge investment of stations, terminals and offices. The track runs through an enormous variety of environments and conditions, from the lush green of the southwest dairy country to the harsh scrub of the goldfield. It's constantly at the mercy of the elements, of vegetation overgrowth and of wind-blown debris. And continuing vigilance is required to ensure the trackside corridor remains clear, so that we remain on track. Many believe that the care and maintenance and overall design of the corridor is undertaken by the local Shire Council. But that's not so. The area of land between the track and the council verge, about 30 metres on either side of the track, is the Railway Reserve, and it's maintained solely by Westrail. It's a big responsibility, and it's an area Westrail places great importance on. Beside being a big part of our public image, the track corridor cuts through environmentally sensitive countryside and requires special skills to balance transport needs with those of Mother Nature. These skills are brought to bear by the manager of our landscape department, Peter Bothwell.
We have two main functions. One is, from a maintenance point of view, that our permanent way is protected and is clean, and secondly, also from a design point of view, that we come up with solutions to problems. For instance, wind breaking and noise attenuation and new landscaping around amenities are all parts of the design process that we're trying to achieve. We are keen that not only from a preservation point of view, but also from an aesthetic point of view, that West Australian native species are preserved. What we've seen over here today is that those few trees are in some sort of danger because the Watsonia is taking over and overgrowing the young seedlings. And in fact, what we're trying to establish is a marker system, a uniform marker system that protects them from works, and also in this case remove that Watsonia weed and the seedlings can revegetate. Once we used to burn the reserve, and now we've come to the stage where we implement the planting of native species, and we hope to carry this right through and continue the good work we've established. There is one particular scheme now with Greening Australia that will probably include all government departments, establishing a green corridor between Perth and Kalgoorlie. So I think that the management of that particular land might involve a lot of revegetation in the future.
And what an excellent contribution they make too. As always, at about this time, we remind you that if you have any comments or story suggestions, something newsy or amusing happening in your area, please let us know. We'll endeavour to send out a camera person and shoot the item for inclusion in a following news program. You can write to us here at Public Affairs, 6th floor, Westrail Centre, East Perth. And don't forget about our viewers' video segment too. Beg or borrow a camera and get shooting. Perhaps as a presentation, a special birthday, or a sports event you'd like to share with us. We'll be happy to feature it in a later edition of the program, so let's hear from you. In these days of urban sprawl, of increasing tourism, and our general need for greater mobility, competition for the passenger transport dollar has become intense. The industry has certainly attracted its share of inexperienced small-time operators with the lure of quick profits. But with the huge overheads involved, road coach companies in particular are failing at an alarming rate. So it's heartening to hear that our own Road Services Division, having just achieved a milestone year, is going from strength to strength. Here is this edition's cover story. For the last 40 years, the coaches of Westrail's Road Services Division have maintained a huge passenger service throughout the southern part of the state. Wherever rail is unavailable, Westrail's coach services are on the go, taking city folk to the bush and providing country people with the high standard of transport service they deserve. This month marks the announcement of the fate of Road Services Division. The Minister for Transport had called for expressions of interest from the private sector to take over all or part of this network, with the hope that the public would get a better service needing less subsidy. After close evaluation of the proposals, however, the service has been retained totally by Westrail, proof of the government's confidence in road services' improving deficit and a vindication of Westrail's philosophy to maintain a high standard of passenger service. The division has come a long way. In 1947, their 24 coaches travelled a total of 5,500 kilometres. The same number of coaches now travel a huge 2.5 million kilometres annually. The all-Mercedes-Benz fleet is economical and reliable, with all the onboard comforts you'd expect from an aircraft, and with a safety and performance record second to none in Australia. Road Services Officer, Mr. Steve Richardson.
Looking at increasing the size of our coaches from the current 42 seats to perhaps 57 or 63 seats to cater for peak demands on our major routes, which are Albany and Geraldton. We can see another good 40 years. We've just gone through 40 years of many changes in that time, and we're looking forward to the next 40 years and providing an economical service to the community.
Westrail's road coach network now officially retained by Westrail. Congratulations, and here's to another 40 good years. And with me today I have Mr. Bob Santich from Westrail's Road Services Division and Mr. Gary Jones from the Department of Transport. Gentlemen, welcome. Firstly, Gary, why did the state government call for expressions of interest in Westrail's Road Services network?
Back in 1980, Russell, the Commissioner of Transport and the Commissioner of Railways undertook a joint review into the Westrail network. The outcome of that review was in 1984 a series of recommendations were put to government and endorsed.
Well, what were the main points called for in any of the submissions?
The expressions of interest put together a series of packages, regional packages, and operators were asked to express an interest in any one or more of those packages.
Well, Bob, how did Westrail approach its submission?
We actually commenced our bid some 4 years ago when our reported loss on road passenger operations was around $3 million. we embarked on a program to turn this deficit around. That program included reducing the number of fleet and having a more modern, although smaller size fleet. And this has put us in an excellent position where I believe now that our efficiency is equal to, if not better than, any private operator.
Gary, South West Coach Lines have been given a licence to operate in competition with Westrail in the southwest region. Is there the demand for two operators in this area, and what controls will the Department of Transport have over these operations?
Russell, both the South West Coach Lines and Westrail have been operating services in the southwest for some years, satisfying their own particular markets. The Transport Department operates under an Act which contains provisions which enables us to be able to ensure standards, frequency and fare structures are kept at a reasonable level.
So Gary, does this mean that there could be any restrictions on the services the two operators can offer?
Yes, there will. On the Perth-Bunbury leg, there'll be restrictions to protect the Australian service, and in the southwest, each operator will be given some level of protection for its services against its competitor.
So Bob, how do you see the future of Westrail's road services?
Russell, I think the future looks really great. Recent patronage trends are showing an increasing demand for our services, so much so that we're putting extra buses on tabled routes, and in the pipeline we've got proposals for larger capacity buses to cater for this demand. Our wildflower tours and our charter services are becoming increasingly popular, and things can only get better from now.
Well, that's certainly really good news indeed, and thank you gentlemen for coming into the studio today. And our next story sees Westrail on the road as well. This time it's the marketing department at a special country event.
It's the equivalent of a giant exhibition, yet more, it's an occasion, the highlight of the year for many country dwellers, and there's so much to see and do. There are old friends to catch up with, new ones to make, and all sorts of bargains to be had. Yes, it's this year's Dowerin Field Day, and Westrail were out on show, giving the more than 40,000 visitors an opportunity to find out more about our grain and passenger services. Dowerin is the largest of WA's country exhibitions. In fact, it's one of the largest field days in the Southern Hemisphere, and it's one of 8 such events Westrail takes part in every year. This was the first time that passenger business staff had attended the Dowerin Field Day, and this initiative proved popular, with staff answering hundreds of inquiries about Westrail tours and passenger services. This year's event also coincided with the release of the 88-89 grain freight rates, and these drew many favourable comments from farmers. So what else did Westrail have to say to visitors?
Not just an agricultural display, it lets everyone know that we're involved in a lot of other enterprises such as joint ventures, new technology, improvement in track maintenance, and in general the whole outlook on Westrail's contribution to the country areas.
Dowerin Field Day, an unqualified success for Westrail's marketing and operations staff. See you there next year.
And it really is a terrific day out for all the family. There's something akin to a renaissance happening at Westrail Centre at the moment, looking more like the set of a Steven Spielberg movie. The mechanical branch have transformed the normally subdued environment into another world. It's a story of hard work and ingenuity as Westrail personnel carry out a precision operation. We'll have a full report on that story in the next edition of Westrail News. For our final item today, we journey to a delightful corner of the state. Bob Stewart has a story of a new tourist attraction in Pemberton that will take you for a ride back into the past. That's all from me. I'll see you next time.
The southwest of our state is acknowledged as having some of the best stands of hardwoods in the world. The area has been recognised by the timber industry since the turn of the century, with enormous logging operations giving birth to the many small towns in the vicinity. In its heyday, timber in huge quantities was felled and transported to the nearby towns by rail. As felling slowed and more stringent rules for harvesting the hardwoods came in, the railway line was used less and less, until in 1985 the disused track was closed for good. That is, until retired Army Major and engineer Bob Pearson had his way. Make way for the Pemberton Tourist Tramway. Early in 1987, the government allowed private operators to make productive use of rail facilities that otherwise would have only scrap value. Mr. Pearson decided that the 36-kilometre Pemberton Northcliffe line would make a superb scenic tourist attraction. So the Tourist Tramway was born. The 40-seater trams were built to resemble those in use in Fremantle at the turn of the century, and they take a pleasant 2 hours for the journey between the towns.
I suppose about 95% of the reaction is very strong, very favourable, very pleased that the railway line has been able to be maintained and kept open for people to be able to enjoy it. And I suppose rather than the old times when the line was used for transporting people from A to B and it was a transport means, people are now going out there and just solely enjoying the line and what's surrounding it. The line is still owned by Westrail. The Pemberton Tramway Company actually leases the line, and one of the requirements within that lease is that the maintenance of the track is the responsibility of the tramway. And we do have an ex-railway ganger. He works for us and with a couple of other people from Northcliffe to maintain our line. We're really only touching the tip of the iceberg as far as what we can be done with this type of service, and I would think in the years to come that it will just continue to grow.
The tramway service will greatly benefit the Pemberton area by adding a unique tourist product to the region. And so now we can all see and enjoy this beautiful district in a way the loggers never dreamed.